All right, everybody, welcome back. Episode 2, now batting for the Phillies. Hey, Mike and Bob, Phillies baseball chat. Mike Gill, Bob Wankel. We're back every Friday. We drop it for you here on the BFA live stream, all the social media platforms. Make sure you like, rate, review, and subscribe. You can get the audio version on all podcasting platforms, except for Apple. They won't accept us yet, but we're working on it. Bob Wankel's back. A Mike and Bob Phillies baseball chat is here for your Friday. We wouldn't have it any other way. So much to discuss. Dave Dombrowski is back, Bob Wankel, just like us. We are back.
I appreciate Dave Dombrowski doing that interview yesterday on, what was it, the Foul Territory podcast?
Foul Territory, yeah.
Because we need content. We need stuff to unpack here, and we need stuff to talk about. It's October 24th. The World Series starts tonight. This season's still going on, and we're like, all right, let's zoom ahead to March 27th, 2026.
So, yeah, but, I think most of the people listening and watching are more intrigued by what the Phillies are going to do next than who wins the World Series. That being said, did Dave Dombrowski have to go on foul territory because he thought he said something wrong?
I feel like Dave Dombrowski wanted another opportunity to talk and maybe clean up and clarify a few points. Not saying that he wouldn't have otherwise done the show. Dave, also, if you're listening, if you still feel like you didn't get it right and you want to come on this show, we're here for you. But, yeah, listen, I think that it was probably important for him to not go away until the winter meetings and reemerge and then say, we want to keep Bryce Harper. I think it's probably important for the Phillies to message that almost immediately. And I'm kind of curious as to why those comments were made. I'm curious as to why the initial comments were made at the press conference. And then I'm curious to know, did someone get in Dave's ear over the last week or so and say, you got to clean that up?
Right. Well, I don't know. Did you feel that he cleaned it up, or did he just re-say what he said and just said, I don't think I said anything wrong. I just re-said what I said.
I think he said it with a different tone. I thought that the message was a little bit more gentle and maybe a little less matter of fact. I think it was more. I think he cleaned it up. I think what he was saying was it was not an elite year by Bryce Harper standards. It's very possible that he can be that player again. We like Bryce. We want him back. You see Joel Sherman come out and he's saying, I wouldn't be surprised if Bryce has moved.
You said that last week.
When the industry
here, you said that last week too.
I didn't say that they were going to move him. I said
I agree.
0.5% chance that they'd move him. Would they pick up the phone and at least listen to another team say, listen, we know where you're at. Here's where we're at.
Yeah.
Could we possibly? And would they just say no way and hang it up? I don't think that they would, but that doesn't mean that they're actively seeking or even really entertaining or plotting a potential trade of Bryce Harper.
No, and listen, I'm not saying that you were suggesting making they're going to try to. No, just the fact that people were going nuts over what Dombrowski said and then trying to connect the dots that maybe they would trade him or maybe he wants to be traded or maybe he would ask to be traded. I never felt it was going down that road. However, what I have said is I don't think Phillies fans, I think you're at the point where you are with Joel Embiid. I love Joel when he was Joel, and now that he's not, trade him. You're teetering on that moment where the Phillies fans are about to say, I don't think Bryce Harper's the guy that I fell in love with, so now I'm ready to move on for him if the opportunity presented itself.
I think that the realistic viewpoint of this is if you were considering the possibility of Bryce Harper not finishing his contract in Philadelphia, now is probably the time to entertain it. So the Phillies have to kind of make a decision. We are committed to this throughout the duration, which is where I think that they're still leaning. But if you did want to move on, you need to do it before the contract looks like a loser, looks like a lemon. Right now, I think it's still a favorable contract at $25 million per. I still think he's a good player. He still had a good year, and there's value in that contract still. So if you wanted to do it, you'd have to do it now. I don't think that they would do that, though.
Yeah, I don't either. Now, remember, he did ask for a raise in 2022 after the World Series, and it seems that here we are a couple of years later, and that's never really been revisited to our knowledge anyway. Do you know anything about that?
Now, here's really my take on this. If I just listed out the big bullet points, I think that the Phillies were a little bit disappointed with Bryce Harper's season. I think Bryce Harper was a little bit disappointed with this season. I think that there's probably some degree of agitation that it became public knowledge that he asked for more money. I'm sure that they did not love that. And they have obviously not catered to that request to date. I don't expect them to. But do they want to trade him? Do they want to move on from him? I don't think so. So I think that Dave's comments last week was like a little bit of a wake-up call, like a little bit of a, hey, we expect more. We didn't love you this past season. We want you to be a little bit better on the field in terms of production and maybe even demeanor as well. Like, you're the guy here. You need to play like it. But I think it was done more in like under the framework of we want you here long term, not we're trying to get rid of you. We're trying to piss you off. We're trying to rattle your cage a little bit so that you want to get out of here.
Yeah, like the money's good. $25 million. Like, they got to now they have, like, they think they have a bargain, but now you're getting to the point where we hope that you perform, because like he missed 30 games this year. That's another month of baseball. That's 5, 6, 7 more home runs. He hits 35 homers and everything. Who knows what the conversation feels like.
Yeah, I mean, look, if he finishes the season with, an 847 OPS and 33 home runs and drives in close to 100, like, again, you're still talking about a super productive player. You're just not talking about one of the 7 to 12 most elite players in the sport. And when you, as Dave said, when you hear Bryce Harper's name, that's what you expect. Yes. And I think that they are hoping that he gets to that again in 26. And frankly, like, you look at this team, and this is why it's so important. You can talk about what are they going to do in the outfield? How are they going to backfill the depth of the starting rotation? Can they make this bullpen better? Sure. Like, these are all things that you have to talk about as it relates to the 26 Phillies. But where can the Phillies truly get meaningfully better? It starts with Bryce Harper. Like, if he becomes the player that he's capable of being again, that allows them to take another step forward without spending a ton of money.
Well, we'll get into some of the expenditures a little bit later on, but Nick Castellanos got an agent. What's the message from Nick Castellanos getting an agent? What do you got?
I mean, I think it's a smart move. He's represented himself for basically the better part of the last year, and he's likely to go somewhere this winter.
Did he get his own $20 million a year contract, or did he have an agent when he got that?
No, he had an agent when he received that contract, and then he broke affiliation, and then he like I said, for about the last year has been unrepresented, and now he's returning, and I think that's smart on his part, because the reality of it is that the Phillies are either going to outright release him, or they're going to probably try to find a bad contract with another team somewhere where they can link up the money. And then maybe the Phillies throw in some prospects. I mean, I think that those are the two possibilities here. Like, so if you're sitting here right now saying, well, hopefully they can trade Nick Castellanos because he has his moments offensively and maybe get back like a useful middle reliever, like that's not going to happen. The two things that are going to happen are they either outright release him because there is no market for him, or they link up with another bad deal, or maybe they do find a useful player, but they're going to have to pay with prospects. Those are the outcomes here. So he, in the event that he's going to be, a potential free agent even, he has to have representation.
Well, like I look at a bad team, like a Pirates, a small market, that you always like, why would they want him? Well, they want him. Hopefully he hits 15 homers by the trade deadline, and then they can trade him. Like the Phillies will pay the Pirates, a bad team, to take a veteran player, and then the Pirates hope to get one good half out of him and then spin him at the deadline. Like that's generally a team that you would try to find as a partner here.
Yeah, I mean, like I go back to those 16 and 17 Phillies before they started to turn the corner and become competitive again. Like, you would think for a team that's rebuilding, a team that's young, a team that's not trying to compete, like you would theoretically not want to have those placeholders on your roster, fill up lineup spots. You want all these young guys to be competing. But, you do need veteran presence. Like the guy will probably hit 250 for you. He might hit 20 home runs. Like, so there's some front office somewhere that's like he's been around the block. There's a degree of professionalism here. And as you said, maybe we take him on the cheap. He goes on a run for 2 months, which he's capable of doing. We flip him in July or August, and then there you go. I mean, That's what it's going to be. But as I said last week, I said it kiddingly, but I'll go back to it. I think that you have a better chance of playing right field for the 2026 Philadelphia Phillies than Nick Castellanos does.
Well, him getting the agent kind of solidifies that, right? That's them saying, look, Nick, if you want to go try to entrepreneur, he doesn't want to make those calls, so he needs someone to make those calls for him.
For sure. And I mean, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if that has not been communicated to Nick Castellanos directly that he is not in the team's plans next year. I don't think that this is a situation where the Phillies – one thing I'll say about the Phillies is that they handle business in a professional way. And I think that they, for the most part, amongst agents, like the industry speaks highly of how the Phillies conduct their business. And I think that players typically speak highly of the organization for how they conduct their business. So in that, I don't think that they're saying, Nick, hang tight. You might be back. You might not be back. I would imagine that there has been a conversation in place that has sort of laid the blueprint for what his future is going to be this winter.
Okay, so we think Castellanos will not be back. Is Bohm the most likely other guy not back? Is that the guy that we're looking at right now as the most likely trade candidate? Or do you think – no, Dombrowski did say on Foul Territory that, he has presented his plans. They have been approved, so he now knows what he can do. I don't know if that means, hey, there's a big target here or a big opportunity, or is it more, yes, I can now call and try to trade Alec Bohm?
So the Alec Bohm thing is really interesting. And those of you that have listened to us on the radio over time, or, me elsewhere, or when I was writing at Crossing Broad, like I'm not a huge Alec Bohm guy. And you sit here and say, this is about getting better this winter and parting ways with a guy that had some pretty good at-bats in the NLDS against the Dodgers, who hit 287 and who hit 287 after a dreadful start to the season. I mean, he was essentially a 300-plus hitter from mid-May onward. And you say, like, why are you in such a rush to part ways with this guy? He doesn't strike out a ton. He can use all fields. Like, he's kind of what you in some ways want in this lineup. I think that the fact of the matter is that let's just work under the assumption that JT Realmuto comes back, which isn't a slam dunk, but let's just assume that they say we can't afford to take that big of a step back at catcher. And let's just say that they decide to bring back Kyle Schwarber because they have to, for a leadership standpoint, from a slug standpoint. Where do you reconfigure this roster, truly? Where do you reconfigure a lineup that's fallen woefully short year after year after year in postseasons recently? And I think you have to look at third base. Like, the reality of it is that Alec Bohm can hit, and he might be actually better served playing elsewhere. Quite honestly, I think that he might thrive in a less demanding, less pressure-driven market where he can just be Alec Bohm and not be a guy who you always look at and say, yeah, I wish there was a little bit more to his game. So I think it might be better for the player, but for the Phillies, like, where do you reconfigure and strengthen this roster? And I just feel like the third base is the place where this really sticks out. And so I think for all of those reasons, and by the way, that they tried to trade him last offseason, they've never denied that. And you didn't hear Dave talk about Alec Bohm one time in that press conference last week, not once. I think for all those reasons, it makes it much more likely than not that he is out of here.
I've been a Bohm guy in terms of, I like Bohm. All the reasons you said. He's a guy that they could use if he was hitting 6th or 7th in the lineup. Unfortunately, he has been miscasted here because Castellanos has been so bad that he has hit 4th where Castellanos was supposed to hit so that Bohm could move to the 6th or 7th spot. But Castellanos has been so rotten that they've had to move Bohm into that spot because he puts the ball in play. He hits for a decent average. He uses all fields. The problem is he doesn't offer enough protection to hit 4th. If they could figure out a way where his stable spot was 6th or 7th, I would be okay. But in your conversation there, I agree. You can't miscast him as a number 4 hole hitter again and have no protection for those guys in the middle of the lineup. So how can you improve the middle of the lineup? That is what you need to kind of look at. And if Bohm improves the middle of the lineup, then absolutely you take that opportunity. Now, are you just getting rid of him to get rid of him, or would you be okay if he was playing third base and batting 7th?
Well, I mean, I just don't necessarily, at least right now. I mean, we're so early in the offseason. We haven't really had a lot of the trade talk, the chatter.
Well, I got names.
We don't even know who's opting, out of their contracts. But, like, if you could improve this team elsewhere and you then presented to me Alec Bohm hitting 7th or 8th in this lineup, then sure, I think that he becomes much more palatable. I'm going to just work under the assumption that the Phillies aren't going to get drastically different in terms of their offensive personnel, and so that this is going to be a swap out and a swap in. And that's why I think that it just becomes that third baseman becomes the piece you're looking for. The guy that I think about, and it would require maybe even not bringing back Kyle Schwarber to do it, but like I just think if Alex Bregman becomes available, that's a guy that they're going to look at. I just think that's the guy.
That was a name last year a lot, too, that a lot of people thought if they could move Bohm, that they would make the play for Bregman. Because if they just move Bohm and just insert Kemp there, is that good enough?
No. I think you take a step backwards. I like Otto Kemp. I think Otto Kemp is – so, like, here's the problem. If the Phillies were the 2017 or the 2018 Phillies and you said, like, well, we have a guy. We've seen him now for a handful of years. He's a decent player, but he's not really going to be here for the next run or the next wave of success. You'd move on from Alec Bohm and say, like, let's take a shot on Otto Kemp. Maybe that pop that we saw in spurts becomes more consistent. And he's a young guy, and he grows into a role where we can see this man hitting 30 home runs for us for a couple of years. But the Phillies are in a win-now mode. Like, I know that it's not 26 or bust for them. They're trying to keep themselves competitive moving forward beyond next season. But this really is a how do we maximize our chances to win a championship in 2026? And I don't think Otto Kemp is a guy that you can rely on and say he's an everyday guy. Now, can he be a platoon piece? Sure. Can he be a guy that is your first bat off the bench and play, 100 games for you or get 300 at bats, 400 bats? Sure. But he can't be an everyday guy. He can't be the guy that you pencil in there.
Agree. Unless you trade Bohm and we're able to get a bat in return for him, which I don't know how you're doing that, but then if that player plays right field, then Kemp plays third base, is that acceptable?
What's truly interesting about the whole thing is that are the Phillies basically just trying to move off the player? Are they trying to get player return value for Alec Bohm? Like, what are the Phillies?
Yeah, like what do you hope to get for Bohm if you move him, I guess becomes the next question.
I think that there has to be a willingness in order to do this to basically say we are just trying to vacate the spot and the money that he's owed in the short term. Not to say that you don't get anything back for a guy that hits 287 or has some usefulness, but if you shopped him after last season and you didn't really like what was out there in return, is the return going to be meaningfully better this offseason? And I just don't think it is. Like, I don't think you're going to get back a piece that says, "Oh, this is going to bring us closer to a championship." It's hard to see that in this moment. But that's the thing, Mike. Like, you go back to 2022, they come up short in the World Series, and you say they need a shortstop. They need a shortstop. This is a great free agent class, an all-time free agent class for shortstops. You go out and you sign Trey Turner, and that's supposed to put you over the top. You're knocking on the door here. You're knocking on the door. The problem is this offseason, there's not just hey, grab the shopping cart, go down the aisle, and get the most pricey, expensive, shiniest object, and that's going to get us to where we need to be. It's going to require creativity and probably some degree of luck as you try to navigate this.
Yeah, because, all right, let's throw out CBS Sports put out the top Major League Baseball free agents, and they listed possible suitors. The Phillies' name came up for a couple of these guys. Number one is Kyle Tucker, suitor, Phillies, Dodgers, Yankees. Realistic, left-handed bat. Does that mean Schwarber walks? Can they coexist?
I think that if they were to go out and bring in Kyle Tucker, that would be the end of Kyle Schwarber. I don't think that they re-sign Schwarber at, let's just say 4 years, 120, 130, whatever it's going to take to bring back Kyle Schwarber at this point. I'm not saying that's his market definitively, but those are the numbers that everyone seems to kind of be working with. I don't see another 7-year deal at 180,
Correct.
I don't think that they do that deal. And I don't know that they necessarily want to, and I don't know that I would either want to lock myself into another long-term contract this offseason until things kind of, take some more shape about where this team's really heading. The thing I'd like to see the Phillies do in terms of spending money beyond 26 is do the Luzardo deal now, because I think that they want him here long-term. I think that he's part of the plan. I think you lock that up before he reaches free agency.
That was I don't know if you saw Hembo said approach him, try to get him for 80 cents on the dollar. If he says no, turn that money over to Suarez.
I like the idea of trying to do it at 80 or 90 cents on the dollar. And Luzardo has had some injury history, and he seemingly likes it here. And does he kind of maybe cut off some of the top end of his potential earnings in order to get that stability? Yeah, I think it's very reasonable. I don't know, though, that if he were to say no, I'm not interested. And by the way, next offseason, I want X amount of dollars. And the Phillies go, no way in hell. Let's go sign Ranger Suarez now instead. I'm out on that pivot. I love Ranger Suarez. I have all the respect in the world for him. I just don't think he's long for the Phillies. And I don't think I would go down that road even if Luzardo said no.
All right, so these are the next group. Alex Bregman, potential suitors, Phillies not listed. Bo Bichette, Phillies not listed. Framber Valdez, a pitcher, Phillies not listed. Kyle Schwarber, Phillies listed there. Cody Bellinger, Phillies listed there. Would he be, if I can't get Schwarber, I pivot to a guy like Bellinger? Or can they coexist? Another lefty.
I think that this is a free agent class that is not – it's not a bad free agent class. I mean, because you get to Alonso, I know, who's also on that CBS list. There are
Alonso's next, by the way.
Top-end names out there. So it's not like there's one guy only. But Bellinger is going to command serious money. And I just don't think that – and I know he had a good year. He's a good baseball player. I just don't see the Phillies – I would be stunned, honestly, and I don't want to, crap on the exercise here or anything, but I'd be stunned if they went out and signed one of these non-Schwarber free agents at serious money.
I agree.
Unless the winter drags on and then all of a sudden it becomes a 2-year deal at $48 million. I think the Phillies would pay the money in the short term. I know that they have some payroll restrictions, but I think that they would, I think a guy like John Middleton might say, hey, short term, there's an opportunity. It's going to hurt a little bit. Let's engage. But I don't see 5-6 years.
I agree.
Guys.
I agree. I think they are soured on the amount of long-term deals and the age, seeing what they have now and what's happening. They don't want to go back down that road and look 3 years from now and say we're still stuck with these new deals that we re-engage. Let's just take the two that we have. That's where the Schwarber thing becomes very interesting. Alonso's next, Ranger Suarez, which, by the way, suitors, Orioles, Mets, Giants. Can you imagine if Ranger ended up on the Mets? That would be brutal. I think the Orioles, I've been saying Orioles the whole time because the Orioles don't want to spend for pitching. He would be a number one for them, but probably not make number one money. So that's why I think Orioles make sense there. The next guy, JT, they do have the Phillies listed there. He's going to be interesting. Suarez, the third baseman, obviously, if they were able to, I would imagine the same situation. Although he does hit right-handed, does that entice anybody?
We'll see. I don't think that he's what the Phillies want at this point.
Agree.
There's defensive limitations. The age, I think, is something that they don't want to engage in. I don't think so. The guy that's kind of in that second tier, he said, maybe. If you look at Trent Grisham, who had some pop this year, he only hit 234. There's question marks there, but he, in terms of his power, had a nice year. Again, if the markets don't materialize the way that he hopes for, is there a possibility where you maybe go and look at him? Maybe,
He does hit left-handed, just throwing it out there.
I know.
Which it seems that the whole world now hits left-handed, and they all play for the Phillies. And Rob Thompson did say we are a little too left-handed in that situation. So that is basically the list of the top-tier free agents. Then you get to that next tier, and there's your problem. By the way, Harrison Bader is on the list. Potential suitors, they do not list the Phillies. Would you think the Phillies are pretty much out on Bader?
You know what? I mean, look, candidly, I think it really is just about his demands and how the market shapes up. And I don't want to, I sound like a broken record, and I know I guess I'm putting this qualifier on it, but I think the Phillies like Harrison Bader. And again, at the right price, I think they'd love to have him back. I think he was a great fit for the clubhouse. They liked his energy. He showed this season that he can still play center field at a high level. He brings some spunk. I think that this team needs that dynamic. I think that there would be interest there, and I'm a little bit surprised that he's not on that list. I know that he bounces around. I know that he's coming off of a little bit of I don't want to say career year, but he certainly came through a stretch here in 25 where his numbers were up a little bit. They were up with the Phillies. I don't know that the Phillies are necessarily like in love with the idea of paying a premium for that, but I think that there's at least got to be some interest there.
All right, so let's transition to the other free agent possibilities, which a lot of them are relievers, like back-end relievers, Devin Williams and Weaver. Is that something that the Phillies need to target to get that eighth-inning right-handed guy this time around in this offseason, or is Kerkering the guy they're going to hope, matures from age 24 to 25 and hope that he kind of holds that roll down? Or is that something you want to see them pair up with now that you have the back? Now you can start to work the other way, which they haven't been able to do.
Yeah, look, I think we briefly talked about this on last week's show. You have Jose Alvarado probably back, whether that's under the current deal or they rework it. I think he's probably back. It sounds like the indications here are, at least preliminarily, that they want him here. All right. So you have Alvarado and Strom from the left side. If you squint hard enough, you could say that's probably sufficient in terms of like higher leverage left-handed relievers, at least going into a season. I think it's reasonable to say, all right, we like that mix. From the right side, though, yes, you have Duran. He's your ninth inning guy. What do you have after that? David Robertson's not going to be back. You have Kerkering. Not even the greatest optimist could go into a new season where you're trying to win a World Series and say, like, yeah, we believe that he's going to be able to grow into that role where he's a consistent force as a high-leverage seventh or eighth inning guy. I think you have to work under the premise that, yes, there is a lot of potential there. No, he has not fulfilled that potential. Also, we need to realize that he just went through one of the most horrific plays of postseason history in recent memory. We don't know where his psyche's even going to be going into next season. You can't, and I don't mean this as like a knock on him necessarily, but you can't, if you're the Phillies, say we're going to put an overly trust this guy. You just can't. You can't put that much faith into him. So you are short in terms of what you have to supplement the back end of that bullpen from the right side. I thought Dave's comments, Anthony Sanfilippo asked the question, hey, you get into the playoffs, you guys are using starters. Kind of feel like maybe you're a little bit short out there. He meant, we all know the injury situation of Wheeler holds them up a little bit. They wanted to use the surplus in the playoffs. Painter doesn't materialize, whatever. But to bring up like Max Lazar in your answer, like, what are we talking about, man? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So to answer your question, this is a very like long-winded way of saying like they better go out and get another veteran option to pitch from the right side late in games.
I know I'm like the guy who's always like they never use the young player. Like I feel like I've kind of been that on that hill all the time. I'm looking at the kid pitching for the Blue Jays in Game 6. He was at Single A. He's 22 years old, and no one's ever heard of him before. Apparently, he has enough stones to get on the mound and win a Game 6 eliminator. And you have the top pitcher apparently in baseball, like number one pitching prospect, and you can't even say, hey, you know what? Let's see if we call you up if your stuff plays up here. Same with, Churio's leading off, hitting a home run every single time he's up, leading the Brewers. I get, obviously he got hurt, he ran out of gas, but you couldn't say when you have a 12-game lead, hey, I got an outfielder who's hitting 340. Our outfield stinks. Why not give him a shot to see if he can play? Like, I feel like these are some of the things that other organizations have kind of done. And the Phillies have not taken that shot. And you're looking around and saying, I don't know where these guys are going to help next year. And I even said Aiden Miller. When Turner got hurt and then Sosa got hurt, you promoted him to AAA. You know what? Why not just take the shot and see if he can play? Like, what do you hold him back from here? You're up 12 games in the division.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no question that they're a little bit conservative with how they use these players. And then there's also the question of whether or not they're good enough. And would it have hurt to take a look at Crawford? I think Crawford's the one guy that you could specifically say it's amazing, given their outfield situation for the bulk of last season, that a guy hits basically 340 all year in AAA and couldn't get a sniff on this team because Max Kepler was heating up a little bit in August. That's tough. That's a tough spot, and you would have liked to have seen him maybe get a look. Miller Miller struggled at the start of the season. He played much better at the middle of the year. I think that they just felt like he was a year away. And I don't know, man. Like, it's one thing when you play for the Brewers. It's another thing when you play for the Phillies. Everything is under an absolute microscope. I think that they're a little bit cognizant of, like, maybe stunting growth a little bit. As far as Painter goes, he had a disappointing year. There's no way to felt like in spring training.
I agree.
Like, I don't think the Phillies thought Crawford was going to be up in 25. I think they thought it was realistic, like it was possible. But I think that there wasn't a plan necessarily for that guy to be playing every day in 25. Same goes for Miller. But I think that they felt that Painter was going to be a part of the equation at some point.
They said it. July. They told us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you say that being as conservative as the Phillies are if you don't think he's going to be up. That all being said, like Dombrowski tries to kind of, sugarcoat a little bit. He was healthy. He made it through a full season. Like, that wasn't really the goalpost that you're kicking at, right? But there's some truth in that. And, I mean, we've seen it with pitchers, more established pitchers. You get Tommy John, take some time to come back. And the last thing to come back, is true, is the command, and that's what killed Painter this year. He just could not consistently find his command from start to start or inning to inning. So I think he makes the team out of spring training next year. I still think that he's a legitimate prospect that everyone should be excited about. But, to your point, Mike, like it hurts.
What he had to lose.
It does hurt them that they weren't able to supplement this team down the stretch with other pieces. Although you could make an argument, Otto Kemp was that guy to some extent, but not ready for prime time, not ready to help you win a World Series either.
Yeah, well, and then in September, you call up Max Lazar and Garrett Stubbs instead of saying, you know what, it's September, we get 2 call-ups, maybe one of these guys can help be a difference-making player.
You know what? Like, here's the thing. Let me just say this, because there's the way that we look at the Phillies, it's with a very critical eye, and rightfully so. But like you mentioned, the Brewers. Like the Brewers bring up guys, and whether it's the Mizraski kid or Trio, or like these are young guys that are going to and already have made an impact, right? But in fairness, like how many games in the NLCS did the Brewers win? Like they scored 4 runs. They didn't win a game. They got their doors blown off. The Phillies, meanwhile, we're talking about a round earlier. But every game that the Phillies, like, I hate doing this. Like, this is loser talk, I know. So, like, if you're in the comments or you're listening to this and you're rolling your eyes, like, I understand it. But, like, to be fair, like, are the Brewers truly the gold standard of Major League Baseball? They were non-competitive with the Dodgers. The Phillies had an opportunity to beat the Dodgers.
Yeah, I would agree with you in the matchup against the Dodgers. Mizraski, by the way, was one of the only reasons they were in that series. They brought him out of the pen. He threw 5 innings, had 9 strikeouts in the game. Trio helped them get to that series by basically carrying. I mean, hit 3 home runs in the divisional round. So yeah, they did not pair up well against the Dodgers, but those 2 guys were a pretty big key in them getting as far as they did. I agree with what you're saying there. My point would be, you had nothing to lose. Instead, you call up Max Lazar. Like, give me a chance to see somebody who might, like they did with Kirkering a couple years ago. Right. They called up Kirkering and let him pitch in 4 games. The next thing you know, he's on the freaking playoff roster. Yeah. They took a chance on that. They did with Rojas, too, by the way.
Do you feel like maybe that the Kirkering outcome and the Rojas outcomes were maybe
possible
part of the reason that they were like, you know what, let's just go with the veterans. Maybe Max Kepler can keep it rolling.
It's possible, but those 2 guys, Rojas especially, no one ever heard of the guy. And they call him up, and he's playing center field. And the next thing you know, his on base is 350, and he's hitting 300. And they're like, we got to play this guy. And they just kept him. Yeah. Like, it wasn't like they said, hey, he wasn't really supposed to be here. Let's send him back. They kept him. So, all right, let's revisit why we're getting ready for the World Series. The Jeff Hoffman decision. He closes the game out the other night. He strikes out the side. After he had thrown 32 pitches the night before. Now, he stunk for the Phillies in the playoffs. That's undeniable. He was terrible in those playoffs against the Mets. Revisiting that decision, is Dave Dombrowski watching? And by the way, Sir Anthony Dominguez also threw a shutout inning in that, and they traded him away in the was he in the Austin Hayes deal?
Yeah, I mean, Sir Anthony Dominguez also almost cost the Blue Jays that series as well. With
Yes.
the Suarez home run in
Dominguez
Game 5.
has certainly
I'm
bounced
okay.
around.
Like, I have no regrets about Sir Anthony Dominguez. That said, Hoffman. Look, I had an opportunity. I have another podcast where he was a guest, and we sat down and talked to him for about 45 minutes and went through his career arc and kind of what makes him tick and his mentality. And I was super impressed with Hoffman. I just think that the guy is a bulldog. I think he has the right mindset. I think he's super talented. I was surprised, even with the way the Mets series went in 24. I thought that the Phillies would do everything within their reasonable power to keep Jeff Hoffman. He was a good fit in that clubhouse, and just a dude that gets it. So I was watching it the other night. I was really excited for him on a personal level, and I think he showed you what he's made of. Now, in terms of regret, 3 years, other teams took a look at his medicals, had concerns. So do I kill the Phillies for not being the team that goes all in? I guess you can't, especially given their aging roster. They have these multi-year deals that they've come to regret. Things have gone sideways on them a little bit with some of these deals. I get their caution. The problem is, and has always been, is that what did they replace him with? And what they replaced him with was a guy in Romano who killed them. And I think that if you look at the way the Phillies season went, it's reasonable to say, not only if they would have signed Hoffman, would they have had a better record, but if they simply would have let Hoffman walk and had a better solution as a replacement, they probably would have been the 1 seed. And that's where it kills them. Because in a 7-game series, I'm not saying that the Dodgers wouldn't have won in 7 games. They probably would have. They probably would have won in 6, to be honest with you, in my opinion. But I think it gives you a better shot. And I think, the pressure doesn't turn up quite so much after a game 1 where you lose in a 5-game series. I just think that you play baseball more in a 7-game series. You let the game come to you a little bit more. And that's what killed the Phillies this year. It's letting Hoffman go, sure, but it was having absolutely no replacement.
Yeah. Well, the Hoffman thing, you're looking back, it was basically a swap. Hoffman for Romano. Romano was in Toronto. He was here. They flip-flop. One's pitching, closing out a game. Romano.
His career might be over. I mean,
I saw on the internet, the X, somebody posted that Jordan Romano looks like a guy who's folding pizza boxes down the Jersey Shore.
Well, look, I mean,
he seemed like a very nice guy, by the way.
Well, by the way, he is a very nice guy, and if it makes you feel any better, and it won't, but he's a guy that didn't just check out and say, "Oh well, I got paid, I don't care." It tortured him. His season, his failures.
He was accountable.
It really ate at the guy, and you feel sorry. You don't feel sorry for him because he's a pro athlete and he's making $10 million, $8 million, and he stinks, and so there's not a lot of sympathy there. I get it. But just from did the guy care? Did he wear it? Yeah, he did.
No, I agree. I felt horrible for him. There was one night, I forget what happened, but he throws a 97-mile-per-hour fastball. He loses the game. It's a home run. And it was this moment of the velocity's there. I just can't get people out, and I don't know why. You can see, here's a guy that's lost it.
I say his career might be over. I mean, it might be. Would a team, he gets healthy this winter, would a team say, look, the velocity's still there. He still throws mid-90s, upper 90s at times. That's a live arm. Let's bring him in and see. Sure. Yeah, I would imagine that he's in a camp somewhere, not with the Phillies, but I'm sure that he'll be in a camp somewhere as an invitee next year.
All right. We'll get out on this. World Series Game 1 tonight. Bob Wankel, who wins the World Series?
The Dodgers, but I think that the Blue Jays are I don't want to say the Blue Jays are similar to the Phillies. I look at the Dodgers pitching and I look at the Blue Jays pitching, and it's just so superior. And for that reason, I don't think that the series goes beyond 6 games. It might be over in 5. But I think that the Blue Jays have the offensive capability for at least one night in this series to show some firepower. And maybe they're quiet otherwise, very much like the Phillies tend to do. I'll say Dodgers in 6. I'll give the Blue Jays 2.
I got Dodgers in 6 as well. It's funny because we were at spring training. I went to a game in Dunedin, and at the time, our buddy Doug from BFA was with me, and he was saying the Phillies need to try to trade for Vladimir Guerrero because he had not signed that deal yet. And I said, what are you talking about? This Blue Jays team is like a World Series contender. And he thought they were going to stink. And here they are in the World Series, and it's a scrappy team, but they are offensively very good. You might not know a lot of the names on this team if you're just watching us and you're a Phillies fan, but this is an offense. I just don't see where they have the pitching. I don't see where they have the pitching that, like, every day to get through that Dodger lineup. I don't see it, but I think they can out-hit them maybe twice. And so I'll go I agree with you, Dodgers in 6.
I'll actually, if you're a Blue Jays fan out there, I'll give you this. I actually kind of think that they get game 1. I sort of think they get game 1 tonight. They're plus 129 underdog. The line is not overly pumped up for the Dodgers. Snell has been unbelievably good.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, every time I watch the guy pitch, and I know he has the pedigree and the Cy Youngs, and he's on an all-time run right now, I'm like, someone's going to get him. And I just feel like it's going to be tonight. So.
I'm a big Snell fan. I used to love those Tampa teams. Like, I was a big fan of watching those Tampa teams. That dude looks like he never gets any sleep.
No, he's got the he's got
holy
the eyes. He's like, I think he's pretty sensitive about that. He's been responding to people on Twitter about it.
Oh, is he? I mean, he just looks like he never gets any sleep. Yeah. World Series tonight. Blake Snell and Savage is pitching. You know, they're just going to say, hey, let's throw a guy that was pitching at the equivalent of Jersey Shore Blue Claws and throw him in game 1 of the World Series. I love it. Good for them.
Why not?
And that's the game you think they're going to win. Andrew Painter, that could have been you. It could have been you, Andrew Painter. All right, there's episode 2 in the books. We gave you enough of our time on the offseason. There's plenty more that should be happening. We'll have World Series next week by this time. Could be World Series Game 6 Friday night. So we'll take a look at that. And there's other stuff that's going on this offseason that we'll be diving into all the way through. You can listen to the audio version on all podcasting platforms. And make sure you hit the retweet, repost, whatever you're calling Twitter X these days. Subscribe on YouTube. That's been a Mike and Bob Phillies baseball chat. We'll do it again next time. See you, everybody. Take care. Bob, see ya.